At a Korean American church, and I know a couple of you from that, Hyungjae. I used to do the simultaneous interpretation for about 10 years at the church. And yeah, good to see all of you. I work for a company called Deloitte.
Enjoyed that relationship as we've worked together to try to make our community a better place to live for all of us. And just to sort of like give you a little background to how I got into this, which sort of melds into, you know, my passion for working with immigrant communities and frankly all communities in our district. So, you know, similarly, I bounced around the 9th District. I grew up in SeaTac, Tidy High School graduate, and then moved to the West Hill of Kent, where we spent the first 7 years together, 6 years of married life, and then moved to Northeast Tacoma. Northeast Tacoma is basically Federal Way. It's that little piece of Tacoma that nobody thinks is Tacoma on the other side of the port, and then moved to Bellevue. So got the 9th District covered as well. And I got involved in politics when I was very young. My father was a ramp serviceman at United Airlines and was the secretary-treasurer of his machinist union. I always have to point out he was not a machinist, but the machinists organized the airport workers at the time. And so he started taking me to political meetings when I was, 12, 13 years old. I remember seeing Mike Lowry give a speech when he was the member of Congress representing the 7th District, and I must have been like 13 years old at that time. And it really just got me interested in politics and really interested in our community. And as I sort of moved through that process and eventually got elected to the state senate when I was 25, representing the SeaTac, Des Moines, Normandy Park, Kent area, and then Congress 6 years later, two things really animate me in terms of why I love doing this job. One of them is I passionately believe in representative democracy, which is I believe that people should have a voice in how they are governed. Now the details of that can be complicated. People got a whole lot of different systems of government. Parliamentarian, our unique system of checks and balances, which can be problematic from time to time. The Founding Fathers didn't get everything right, by the way. The Electoral College. But the basic idea that is at the core of that, no matter what the system is that people should have a say in how they are governed. And I know we take that for granted, but at the time, in 1776, when we first launched this, there was really no other country in the world that believed in that. What they believed in was a monarch or a religious leader told you what to do and you shut up and did it, all right? And I just believe that human beings are going to live a better life if they have the ability to have a say in how they are governed. If we are benefiting from the wisdom of everyone in the community, not just the people who happen to be in charge. But to make that work is really, really hard, and we underestimate that. I represent 750,000 people, incredibly diverse district, in every meaningful sense of the word, and they differ on issues. How do you bring people together and make sure that they can communicate, understand their voice will be heard, but they don't always get what they want? And it doesn't mean the system is flawed. It means that there's another group of people over here who want something different. And we're trying to balance that so that none of us lose our say in governing. And the second thing that I believe in is opportunity for everybody, all right? Going back to that basic theme that is a huge part of how I look at the world, there is no particular group of people that is any better than any other group of people that I've ever come across. No matter how you want to slice it, every group of people has, you know, some really talented in one way, some talent in other ways, some not so. I want to make sure that we don't discriminate against people and therefore don't deny them and us of the benefit of whatever talents they have to offer. And to do that in our society, you really have to help the people who are struggling the most. You know, people growing up in blue-collar, working-class family, immigrants, to make sure that their talents can come out. Because it's my life. And, you know, I grew up, as I mentioned, in a blue-collar family, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of family connections, certainly had a fair number of challenges growing up. But we built a society where I had good public schools to go to. I walked out my door to my elementary, middle school, and high school. Never had to take a bus. You know, my father was in a union, and because we passed laws to strengthen workers' rights, that union was enough to pay for our family to grow up. My father died when I was a sophomore in college, but there were programs, loans, and other things that enabled me to stay in college and finish. I worked for United Parcel Service when I was in college, another union thing. I was a teamster. And that paid enough money so I could barely piece it together and make it work. I want that for everybody, and I'm particularly focused on people who don't have it. You know, when we discriminate against an immigrant community, when working class people don't have access to the opportunity and the jobs that they need. Passionately supporting the Boeing strike. I do hope they vote yes on Monday. You gotta know when to say we won. We'll see how that works out. But unions are really important. And when you think about it, that basic belief in representative democracy and opportunity is why the immigrant community is so important. Because what is unique about America is people from all over the world voluntarily come here to work hard and make a better life for themselves and their families. And there can be no possible better advertisement for the United States of America than that. And immigrants are what has built this country, literally. So to discriminate against them is stupid and unfair and oftentimes cruel. So I'm a huge proponent of immigration and of supporting that, and of making sure that everybody understands that people are different than you. And that's okay. You know, we can work together and make our communities a better place to live by seeing what we have in common instead of what makes us different. And this is a particularly challenging time in American politics. I don't want to get into why. We can analyze social media. And what politics to me is all about is getting to know the community. If it's changed how? Who are the new people that I need to meet so I can understand who they are, make sure their voice is heard, and make sure that I'm representing them. And I attack that task with an almost maniacal enthusiasm, okay? I want to know what's going on in my district. If there's a community that I haven't reached, then we're going to go reach them. And I want to pause at this moment as I was thinking of that to thank my staff. Shirag is here. He's going to go to work in my district office, assuming we're successful on Tuesday. And I have the best staff, and we all take the same approach. We want to represent everybody in this district. And if there's someone who feels dissatisfied, someone who doesn't feel heard, someone who has a problem, we are going to find that person and do our level best to represent them. And as you grow in an understanding of the district, it's important to do outreach to diverse communities. And my community is that. We speak over 160 different languages in the 9th District, and a laundry list of different groups that I've worked with. So I'm really passionate about that, and the support that I've received from the Korean American community, I think, is very meaningful to me, because it shows that we're working on the issues that I know are most important for our community. And yes, we are continuing to work on the Adoptee Citizenship Act. I think everyone here is familiar with the details, but I'll lay them out anyway. When you are adopted from a foreign country, it happens from time to time that the parents don't do the necessary steps to make sure that the adoptee is a citizen. And we've had a large number of people in this country that have hit 18, separated from their parents, and they don't have legal status in our country, even though it is the only country they've ever known. Now, Congress sort of fixed this in 2005, but they didn't grandfather it. So anyone who was in this country over the age of 18 in 2005 without legal status despite being adopted is undocumented. And we have a simple little bill that would fix that and get them to be citizens. And I'm going to keep working on it. As you might have noticed, immigration is a deeply divisive issue in Congress right now, but this is something that we ought to fix. And that's the other thing I want to point out. I do want to talk about international affairs in just a moment. But I work in a bipartisan way. Now, I do not endorse bipartisanship for bipartisanship's sake, okay? You know, if we got to get something done with someone blocking it for partisan reasons, I'm going through it. All right, I'll get to the end however I can get there. But as an initial matter, we should try to work with everybody. I mean, that's another thing that really troubles me. We increasingly feel like if anyone's different than us or disagrees with us, they are to be ignored. I'm always fascinated by people who disagree with me, because I want to know why, all right? I want to know what I'm missing or what they're missing. Either way, it brings us together. And during the 4 years that I was chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and yes, we are hoping that that reverses and comes back and happens again, I got to work with Republicans, Jim Inhofe, great story. You could not imagine two people more different than Jim Inhofe and me. He passed away just a few months ago, but he was, I think, over 80 at the time, very conservative senator from Oklahoma, best known for bringing a snowball to the floor of the United States Senate one winter and saying that that basically proved that there was no such thing as global warming. I guess it's perspective. But, and also, no sense of humor. Absolutely. I told my staff, I said, look, I got one goal here, and that's at some point I'm going to get him to crack a smile. Because I like making little jokes from time to time. I never did. Okay? And that I failed. But Jim and I did pass 4, I think, of the best pieces of legislation this country has ever seen. 4 national defense authorizing acts that put in place a lot of very important policy. And we got there because despite the fact that we didn't agree, and he yelled at me a couple of times, we got past that. Heck, first 2 years, Donald Trump was president. Okay, and we still found a way. Well, we found a way to get him to sign the bill one time, and the second time we just overrode his veto. As a whole bunch of different paths to success. I am not going to block any one of those paths just because I don't like someone who happens to be standing on it. I'm going to find a way to work with them, and I think we need more of that in our society. Come together and solve problems. When people ask me what I like best about my job, it's a very simple answer. I get to help people every single day. If someone's got a problem, there's a possibility that I can help them. Not always, but most of the time. And I love doing that. I love solving problems and helping people and getting us to a better place. So just to kind of quickly sum up, and I'm anxious to hear what's on your mind, answer any questions, or take any suggestions. The 3 sort of big picture ways I look at my job. One is in the district. You know, how can I work to make the community around here a better place? Right now, and the biggest challenges we have are around our criminal justice system, homelessness, behavioral health, housing, which is way too expensive, and workforce development. Okay, I think we're kind of doing an okay job on workforce development. We're doing a horrible job on the other 4. And you know, there's reasons that some of you know why I'm going to be particularly blunt about this morning, this afternoon. Sorry, I was thinking this morning last time we saw these folks. You know, left-wing extremism. Okay, and the ideological extremism of the far left is screwing up housing, homelessness, criminal justice system, behavioral health. This ridiculous notion that individuals have no responsibility whatsoever for the crimes they commit, the drugs they abuse, and their inability to take care of themselves. Okay, look, there's a ton of other factors. There are, and we need to pay attention to those factors. But there also has to be an element of personal responsibility, or you are in a race to the bottom that you are never going to win. Let's work together. Help people, absolutely. But please don't be so insulting to them as to set no expectations whatsoever. So those local issues are a major problem and a major challenge that are really important. Second is democracy. I've already talked about that. I'm deeply troubled by the number of folks who have decided that democracy is okay as long as you get your way, but if you don't, just try something else. No. Representative democracy is the way we should do this. We should not give in to authoritarian impulses just because we think what we want is so much more important than what anybody else wants. And yes, Donald Trump is a major problem in that regard. It drives me ever so slightly insane that he says all these things, and all these so-called sophisticated intellectual conservatives are like, well, yeah, but he doesn't really mean it. Why does he keep saying it, okay? And I don't want to take the chance, to be perfectly honest with you, whether or not he might mean it, because there's certain indications, January 6th leaps to mind, that he might mean it just a little bit, okay? So I want to keep fighting back for democracy, and then internationally, and this is where our relationship with South Korea is so important. We are locked in a struggle that a lot of people are not really aware of right now. So Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and various terrorist groups out there are bound and determined to crush the international liberal order. Now the primary reason they want to do that, North Korea would be the example you're most directly familiar with, is because they want to be able to bully their immediate neighborhood, and the international order stands in the way of that. The US and our partners are always inconvenient for people like Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, and they are beginning to band together, as we see the North Korean troops showing up in Ukraine, to try to crush the international liberal order. We have to organize and stand up for that. I got a long speech about that. I've already gone on too long, so I won't do that. Just say partners and allies are absolutely crucial. We cannot do it alone. The rest of the world is too big, too vast, and also we shouldn't try to do it alone. And South Korea is a terrific partner. And again, circling back to Trump, let's all remember that he was trying to drive up the price South Korea already pays us an enormous amount of money for our military presence in South Korea. All right, but Trump didn't like the deal, so he was going to drive it up and cut off the relationship, which isn't good for us, isn't good for South Korea, and isn't good for the world. Partnerships matter, and having an erratic, chaotic person in the White House really doesn't help. In fact, I tell the story because it's something that I was privy to that most people weren't. In like June of 2020, so coming up on the end of Trump's presidency, Trump got mad at Angela Merkel. Okay, I forget why exactly. I think she said something about, didn't like about Trump. So he literally ordered the Pentagon to get all of the troops out of Germany, all US troops out of Germany, for no better reason than he was upset with Angela Merkel, okay? And here's the thing, we got a lot of troops in Germany, about 70,000, we got a lot of bases. And they aren't there to protect Germany, okay? They're there to train and have a forward operating base. And if you scatter them, all right, it is just going to undermine our national security. But the Pentagon had to go through this dog and pony show. I sat down with them on multiple times when they said, okay, if we gotta move them, I don't know, we'll put a few in Italy, a few in Spain, bring a few home. That's sort of chaos. Not good. Not good in the best of times. Certainly not good when Vladimir Putin and President Xi and Kim Jong-un and the mullahs in Iran are trying to stare us down. So, I'm in favor of a bipartisan, cooperative, stable, global partnership approach on trying to maintain our national security. And there are many, many reasons that I've stated why the Korean community is so important, but certainly the importance of South Korea in all of this is a big part of it. So, one key partner in that overall effort. So that's sort of the world according to me, and why I'm doing this. I just want to close by, first of all, thanking my wife for being here, Sarah, who you've met on the way in. This has been a family affair since now as Ira say, I was a state senator when she met me, so she knew what she was doing. And our kids were born into it, so they've never known anything else, and it's been a terrific partnership. Could not have succeeded to the level that I have without my wife and my children supporting me, so I very much appreciate that. And then I am happy also, thanks to our hostess, and I am happy to answer questions or take your comments.
Congressman, a lot of the things that you mentioned, I think, ameliorates a lot of our fears as Tuesday comes around. I think we are ever so hopeful for those of us who are here that the nation will be in the right hands. But I guess the question to you is, what else can we do as a community, as individuals, if you were to try to galvanize us? What can we do better?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, which we've kind of already done, it's actually the most remarkable thing that I've witnessed in my life in politics, and that was after Trump won in 2016, the rather broad coalition of not-Trump people, for lack of a better way to put it, got organized and got involved in politics in a way that I'd never seen before. Because, as I mentioned, I started working on campaigns early on, and I am an excessively practical person. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I'm always trying to figure out how to get things done in the least complicated manner possible. And people always used to tell me back in the 80s, because Democrats, folks on the left side of the political spectrum, tend to have sort of a do-gooder sort of outlook, which is everybody means well. And I was like, no, they really don't, not in my experience. So if we could go out and just get everyone to vote. So we're going to organize, we're going to try to get people to vote, we're going to get people involved. My approach when I was running my first campaigns was, there's an identifiable group of people who get involved in politics and public policy. I'm going to go get them. I'm not going to try to convince a bunch of people who aren't interested in doing something they're not interested in doing. All right? And by and large, I was right about that. Until Barack Obama in 2008, when all of a sudden he got people to show up who hadn't shown up before. But then, even way beyond what President Obama did, the way the communities responded and got involved and got engaged really proved me wrong. It proved to me that I had underestimated a lot of the American people. So the degree to which these organizations were formed, and they don't have to be formed around an explicitly partisan angle. No, many of them were, certainly. But you help to elect sensible people. That was like a thing that Liz Cheney, Republican, said after the 2022 election when we Kerry Lake lost for governor in Arizona, Herschel Walker, a lot of bad people lost. She described it as a victory for Team Normal. And I was like that. Because yeah, some of them were Republicans, some of them were Democrats, but they were normal people who were interested in simply trying to make things better, not off on some ideological, ridiculous approach. So that's one. Two, the second thing is, really, every relationship we have, whether it's at your place of business, in your community, whatever group of people you're in, you can be reasonable in working with people, or you can not be reasonable. Be reasonable. Show people that, don't be afraid of engaging with people who disagree with you. Okay? I don't dismiss Trump supporters. I'll talk to anyone who's willing to talk to me. And I think that's a really important message. And just one final story to drive home this point, and to let you know the challenges that we have around here. I always joke that when I go back to Washington, D.C., I'm battling a bunch of right-wing lunatics, and when I come home, I'm battling a bunch of left-wing lunatics. All right? And it's not inaccurate. 2017, I actually went to a rally, a Stop Hate rally that Criminal Paul had organized. A whole bunch of speakers, Seattle Center, and we all got up and talked about, gosh, what are we going to do? Because the hateful right wing is coming for us. And I gave a slightly different take. I said, look, we don't know what just happened. There's a lot of frustration in this country. Don't assume what someone who disagrees with you is going to be. We have to listen to people that we disagree with and engage with them. All right? Now, the irony of this is the very next speaker was Dow Constantine. And at the time, this is when they were getting ready to build the new Juvenile Justice Center beside the lake there, that became so controversial. And a group of people formed. They're abolitionists. They're wrong, with a capital W, by the way. But they want to get rid of the entire criminal justice system. And they had been following Dow. I think Ed Murray was still mayor at that time. But whoever the mayor was, anywhere they spoke, they shouted him down. So right after I gave this speech about listening to people who disagree with you, they shouted Dow down. He literally couldn't, he tried a couple different times, they wouldn't shut up, and so he just gave up and sat down. That's what we're dealing with around here. Don't let that happen. And I'm sorry, I'll give you one other example just to show you that I mean what I said. The last town hall meeting that I had where I wasn't shouted down was in Renton, a year ago or so. And this was right, Ukraine war was going on. There were a lot of people there that were supportive of Ukraine, wanted me to support Ukraine. But as we got to the end, someone got up to speak who was against Ukraine, who didn't think that we should be, supporting them, and just didn't think it was any of our business. And he started to speak, and people started to boo. And I shut him up like that. I said, no, I agree with you, but you do not shout that person. They have every right to say what is on their mind. And I'll handle it, I'll have the conversation, we'll learn from it. So even if it's a side that is kind of agreeing whatever your position is at the moment, it is not okay to silence voices of people who disagree with you. And we've lost track of that as we've gotten so caught up in, is it good for my team? If it's good for my team, then it must be okay. The only team that we're on around here is team democracy, okay? And we need to get a more holistic look at that in terms of how we interact. And like I said, that's on every level. That's not just on the vote that's coming Tuesday. That's at a PTA meeting, at a school board meeting, God help us. A lot of people come up here and say, how can you do your job? And I'm like, at least I'm not a school board member. Because that's getting really personal. So listen, we can be just a little bit more tolerant, I guess, is what I would suggest. Appreciate that. Excellent question, thank you. Yes.
Well, I just want to thank you again for coming and spending a Sunday afternoon with us. And I know you have to also get going. So if we have any questions, we know how to reach out to your office. They call.
Yeah, that's the last thing I should say is I always think of this as an ongoing conversation. I get out to these things so I can build a relationship so we can get to know each other. But you know where to find me, and you know where to find my staff. Please don't hesitate. We'll be doing a lot of work together going forward.
And I've also learned that every phone call is documented and delivered to our congressman. So I was surprised. And there are people who are passionate who call every day about their passionate issues. And it's recorded. So I was just very in awe of the process and the commitment.
And be in awe of my staff.
Yes,
The
yes.
ones who answer the phones and, have those interactions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Our daughter worked for Marie Gleason Camper as
Our
well.
daughter
Well,
was summer too, yeah.
Oh, you're in
So
the
I-
oh, yeah.
I didn't want to, no.
Yeah, no, she was awesome.
I was just, I'm supportive because of the work in democracy. In fact, she actually sent me this and she says, Mom, democracy in bloom, that's how we're looking at it as the young generation.
Nice.
But we
good.
said,
Yes.
people, congressmen like you, keep democracy and has been doing it for almost 30 years so. So thank you. So why don't we do a group photo before?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Is that possible? So why don't you guys sit and stay here?
Korean American politicians on the radar, right? A little bit. Somebody radar?
Yeah, some of them are really like,
Some of them in this one.
I mean, he comes up with CDP.
Are you limited by?
All right, everyone, Congressman. Yeah, okay. He's getting ready to go to his next event. So I know that we are all appreciative of the work. And voting is definitely one way to say thank you for the work, but really it's the dollars, right? So we have envelopes as well as QR code. Thank you to those of you who already donated early. But I just want to make sure that we're able to deliver meaningful amounts. So whatever is meaningful for you, that's what we want to do. And then Lisa has some dessert, so stay and enjoy as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, tell them if you talk.
I'll see Joey another time.
Yeah, you should say I ran into the Smiths.
I will, okay.
Exactly.
More Gabby.
Snack for them. I can't remember the size. Oh, this is my baby that I love. You erased it. Oh, yeah.